Saw dudes. Along the Unison asked, is it possible if you made a video about Stasis builds for all classes since it's getting a rework next season? Yes, of course. Today's video will cover what I believe to be the best Stasis builds for each class in Season 22. Because it will cover 3 builds, I won't be going into multiple weapon loadouts and instead will focus on the ones that I feel have been the best across all content. This is by no means an exhaustive list of good Stasis builds, so feel free to experiment and share in the comments. Finally, I will create an updated video next season once the Stasis subclass is updated. Let's get started. First off, we have Revenant Hunters, which are utilizing a Renewal Grasp build that is heavily focused on survivability. You can survive anything assuming you huddle inside your voided up dusk fields. Silence and Squall offers great ad clear and crowd control and is great as a one-off super since it has a lingering stasis storm that lasts for 14 seconds. Gambler's Dodge is perfect for the build since it will regen our melee ability, Withering Blade. Withering Blade is a stasis shuriken that bounces twice on hit and applies 60 slow stacks. It has 2 charges at base. Since we are using Renewal Grasps, we will be using Dustfield Grenades, which create a slowing field on impact. The aspects are Grim Harvest and Touch of Winter. Grim Harvest causes kills against slowed or frozen enemies to spawn a Stasis Shard, which refunds melee energy on pickup. Touch of Winter increases the radius of Duskfield Grenades by 50% and creates a small Stasis Crystal on impact. Fragments are Whisper of Chains, Durance, Fissures, Shards, and Torment. Chains grants 40% damage resist when near a Stasis Crystal or frozen enemy. Durance extends the duration of slow debuffs, Duskfields, and Silence and Squall. Fissures makes shattering crystals or enemies deal more damage via an additional damage instance. Shards grants 500% additional base grenade regen rate for 6 seconds upon shattering a Stasis Crystal. And lastly, Torment causes damage taken from an enemy to grant 5% grenade energy. Here is the armor and mods for the build. For this build, spec into Resilience, Discipline, and Mobility. Resilience increases survivability, Discipline lowers the Dustfield Grenade cooldown, and Mobility lowers the dodge cooldown. The weapons I use are Verglaw Curve, the Eremite, and Apex Predator. Verglaw Curve is great for 3 things: crowd control, AoE damage, and grenade regeneration. Final blows with the bow grants stasis arrows with a cap of 5. When hit firing, all the arrows are released. Arrows that hit combatants are frozen, and those that hit the environment create stasis crystals. This bow creates more stasis crystals than weapons with headstone would. Shattering the crystals created by Verglaw provides bonus damage through Whisper of Fissures and grenade regeneration via Whisper of Shards. It's also just fun to use since they fixed a couple of patches back. The Eremite is a very unique weapon to use, but puts in some serious work. There's the obvious DPS-oriented role of Envious Assassin plus Control Burst, which I think is great. It offers damage that is somewhat lacking in the subclass kit. However, I also tried out Heal Clip plus Reservoir Burst. It's a combo that allows for great ad clear and sustainability amidst gunfights. Both perks encourage reloading after a kill, so it makes sense. Combined with the insane damage resist of a Duskfield, you are nearly unkillable. Apex Predator is just solid for DPS and nothing else. It'll be carrying our damage numbers when it comes to boss fights. I rolled mine with Impact Casing, Reconstruction, and Bait and Switch. Next up, we have Behemoth Titans, which are using Cadmus Rich Lance Cap. This build is all about long range support and ad clear, so you're free to munch on those delicious crayons in the back. Glacial Quake is good for CC and general boss damage against grounded targets. Since we are using CRL, Rally Barricade is the only choice. Shiver Strike is a movement tool that deals decent damage, knocks enemies back, and applies 50 slow stacks. Glacier Grenade is the best choice because of the instant CC it provides, the possible shatter damage, and the impromptu cover. Aspects are Diamond Lance and Tectonic Harvest. Diamond Lance spawns a Stasis Lance upon killing a combatant with stasis damage. The lance can be thrown to freeze enemies in a small area, or melee to slam the ground, freezing enemies near the impact point. CRL causes Thrown Lances to create a small stasis crystal on impact. Tectonic Harvest spawns a small stasis shard upon shattering stasis crystals. Fragments for the Titan build are Whisper of Chains, Conduction, Fissures, Shards, and Torment. Chains grants 40% damage resist when near a Stasis Crystal or frozen enemy. Conduction brings in Stasis Shards that are within 15 meters. Fissures make shattering crystals or enemies deal more damage via an additional damage instance. Shards grants 500% additional base grenade regen rate for 6 seconds upon shattering a Stasis Crystal. And finally, Whisper of Torrent causes damage taken from an enemy to grant 5% grenade energy. And here are the armor and mods. Stat priority has Resilience up at the top, followed by Discipline, then Strength. We want our Rally Barricade cooldown as low as possible so that Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap can do its thing. Weapon-wise, I use Wicked Implement, Path of Least Resistance, and a Hothead. Wicked Implement pairs beautifully with Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap. Successive precision hits slow targets, and hitting enough of them will freeze them. This gun stuns Overload and Unstoppable champions, and can stun lock barrier champions. When put behind a Rally Barricade, CC is super easy. You can freeze priority targets with the gun, throw a lance, and repeat. Also, the buff to the gun gave it headstone for even more utility. You can't go wrong with it. Path of Least Resistance assists in a long-range playstyle. I crafted one of mine with Shoot to loot and Volt Shot. Shoot to loot allows for the easy pickup of orbs from long range, so we don't need to abandon our rally barricade post. Volt Shot adds some additional ad-clear utility. Hothead offers super easy damage. I rolled mine with Field Prep and Explosive Light, which directly synergizes with Shoot to Loot. You can pick up orbs from a distance to buff up Hothead, then fire off rockets for DPS. If you think any of these builds are helpful, please subscribe. It helps out a lot. Lastly, let's cover the dress-wearing Warlocks. You won't be surprised to hear that it is an Ozymandias Gloves build. This build is meant for heavy crowd control and constant shatter damage. Winter's Wrath is good for freezing groups with its light attack and shattering enemies and crystals with its heavy attack. Healing Rift is the best way to go since it provides constant safety even in close quarter situations. Penumbral Blast launches a freezing orb that detonates and freezes enemies within 2.7 meters on impact. Since this is an Ozymandias build, Cold Snaps are a must. Cold Snaps spawn a Seeker that upon landing with the ground freezes on contact with an enemy. The aspects are Bleak Watcher and Ice Flare bolts. Bleak Watcher allows us to eat grenades to convert them into placeable stasis turrets. These turrets last for 25 seconds, fire in bursts of 5, and apply 20 slow stacks per hit. Ice Flare bolt causes shattering an enemy to create a freezing Seeker that targets the closest enemy within 12 meters. Fragments for this build are Whisper of Durance, Refraction, Rending, and Torment. Durance extends the duration of slow debuffs and the Bleak Watcher lifetime. Refraction causes kills on slowed or frozen enemies to grant class ability energy. Rending causes primary ammo weapons to do 100% increased damage against stasis crystals and 50% increased damage to frozen enemies. Finally, Whisper of Torment causes damage taken from an enemy to grant 5% grenade energy. For the last time, here are the armor mods. Max out Resilience for the best survivability possible. Then follow up with Discipline and Recovery. Discipline lowers our grenade cooldown for more turrets, and Recovery reduces Rift cooldowns. Low Rift cooldown is important due to the Bomber mod on the Bond, which grants grenade energy on cast. The weapon loadout I use the most with this build is Outbreak Perfected, Iterative Loop, and Half Truths. Outbreak Perfected is amazing for ad clear and single target damage. It's great on its own, but gets an additional 50% buff with Whisper of Rending. This elevates its damage even further. Bleak Watcher turrets ensure that enemies will almost always be frozen, so killing with this gun will spread freeze and a ridiculous amount of nanites. The loop of buff damage never ends, assuming you stay alive and continue to shoot the weapon. Iterative Loop is a special DPS option I went with. I chose to go with Lead from Gold and Volt Shot for a very reliable DPS tool. Lead from Gold enhances the ammo economy, as it can pull ammo from special and heavy bricks. Volt Shot grants additional DPS in the application of jolt to enemies and can assist in ad clear. Half Truths is my favorite movement tool, especially on Warlocks since they can glide. I crafted mine with Relentless Strikes and Eager Edge to traverse the map faster. However, if you are more concerned with dealing heavy damage up close, look no further than Bequest. Bequest has the best stats out of all adaptive swords and can be crafted with Relentless Strikes and surrounded for a massive 41.75% damage increase. Out of the three classes, I would have to say that Titans and Warlocks have a leg up. They both have unrivaled crowd control that Hunters don't. While the Hunters have very good damage resist, they are confined to the area provided by a Duskfield grenade. In situations where you need to vacate an area, it simply is not the best option. Titans and Warlocks are generally free to move around. Titans just need to play a bit safer and place rally barricades as they move from post to post. Some closing thoughts for these builds. First off, don't take these builds as the definitive best. I play differently than a lot of people, so try out different aspects, fragments, and weapons. The weapon loadout section in this video is lacking because I wanted to keep things short and easy to understand. Also, I didn't want to drag out the video for too long. 2. Stasis will be getting buffed next season or reworked. When that happens, I'll try to make another video like this, or just cover each class in depth in their own videos. With that out of the way, I hope you guys liked the builds. It took quite a while to get used to them again, since I have my own personal favorites from other classes. I would like to thank Milan the Unison again for giving me the idea to create this video. I don't usually like making this type of content, since it can take away from the detailed info, but I think I managed to strike a balance in this one. Let me know what you think and what other builds you would like me to cover. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming.